Welcome to Massimo Arte account here on YouTube. This is the first video I'm making and it is a video tutorial about oil painting, and I was asked to prepare a video tutorial about how to paint this small painting. This small painting was very loved by people on Instagram, Facebook and YouTube, and a lady asked me to make a tutorial about how I painted this small artwork. So I decided to make a different format, and I use this paper for oil and acrylics, the Cansons, 290 grams, and I actually prepared the paper, and in this video you can discover with me how I turned this paper into this beautiful painting. Here we go. And in the tutorial video, we go step by step from value and masses, blocking in, proportions, drawing and color mixing. In the description section down below in the video, you find all the colors I used and I've got on my palette from left to right, and other important information on how I created this painting. So if you want to learn all the process from start to finish, just follow up the video and enjoy. So welcome in this tutorial. I've prepared for you for the oil painting lovers, and in this video I will show you how to paint this sunset painting. As you can see, this is one of my small painting series painting that had a lot of response and many people loved it, so I decided to use it as a reference painting for a bigger painting for this tutorial. Here I'm showing you some of my materials, some few flat brushes and round brushes, bigger size and smaller sizes, it depends on you. For this format we can use like not too big brushes and either not too little brushes. And what we do now is that we put some turpentine on our palette and we mix burnt umber and ultramarine blue to get a natural black color. This color mix is perfect for starting the drawing section. As you can see, the paper I'm using is already sized. It means that it has got an imprimitura on it for better checking our contrast, our values. As you can see, I use a gentle hand brush work and I start putting down my values. And the first thing I do is to position all the sea, mountains, trees, field, in the background, bushes, water, and whatever it is needed to be drawn on the scene. So I start off with from the right to the left, just to have a system that does not lead me to a too hard vision of the painting I'm about to paint, the scene I'm about to paint. And by using the burnt umber and the ultramarine blue, a little bit of turpentine, or as well you can use, if you don't want to use turpentine, you can use natural spirits that fit as well, then make the work as well as turpentine does. And here I am working on my composition. This is a very important thing to do at the very beginning. we need to find a focal point. In this case, we've got the sunset, so I chose an unusual point, focal point in the middle of the scene, but I'm using the mountains, as you can see on the right, to break down the 20 centimeter height of the painting, and I chose to go a little bit upper than in the precise halfway of the painting side height. That would be like 10 centimeters. So I used to use the mountain as a good driving point to break down better the scene and the composition. This is called as well the golden ratio rule, and it is very important to make strong compositions and to keep the viewer's eyes stick to the painting. So you want to get a nice strong painting that leads the viewer to the focal point. So what I'm doing here, I'm just using simply my burnt umber and my ultramarine blue, and as you can see, we've got a nice natural browny tone, and we start simply by blocking in. So this is the stage of blocking in the values, the bigger masses, as you can see. So we start from the background usually, or you can actually choose the darkest masses, and the darkest masses are trees, mountains. Then we find usually fields, and the most brighter value is the sky and the clouds. So those are the lightest masses or values in our painting. And as you can see, I'm using a small brush and just simply literally drawing with paint my masses. And it is very important not to overwork our drawing, because you don't want to add too many details. You don't want to keep the drawing, the blocking extremely complex, and actually don't need any color. We are now focusing really on black and white, or better say shadows, values, light, dark. That's very important, because we need to have a plan. We need to know exactly where we are about to go, and this will lead us to success, because we keep them. If we keep the values and our masses right, then we have a very good starting point, and we can actually then work only on hue, color, intensity, and we can play around, simply enjoy our painting. But we know exactly, more or less, because it is important to keep variety and not to be too, let's say, not stick too much on the source of our painting source. As you can see, the upper small painting is my painting source. I'm not trying to copy it extremely. I'm not trying to copy it. I'm not trying to make the same. I don't want to reach the same result, because this is not painting, then we're just printers. So the very good thing is then to keep your palette. As you can see, I'm removing the color from the palette, so to keep my working section, my working place clean, the surface clean. And this helps at the beginning the better understanding of color mixing, and it's anyway very important to keep it clean. So we're starting now the sky, so we're blocking in the sky. Just a few things here. I show my bottle of turpentine, and I picked a bit of ultramarine blue, and I'm diluting it with the turpentine in order to keep it not too to keep it transparent, right? I added a little bit of turquoise and a little bit of titanium white to keep, you know, during the sunsets, the even light is kind of blurry, kind of there is a film, kind of, it's not totally blue, so we try to recreate this feeling, this like atmospheric feeling through colors. And what is very important here is to keep, we will make some sections. So we're starting now with the blue. As you can see, you know, the lights during the sunsets are not too kind of a different feeling. They go like yellowish, how to say, because there is a filter, there is a strong sunshine scene, so the golden light affects all the sky colors. So we don't want a strong blue because it will break down and will not fit in the scene and will not like be that smooth in the scene, and we will actually, it will take too much attention and it will not create this feeling of depth. So now what I'm doing is I'm going a little bit lower and I'm adding a little bit of Vermillion, a burnt sienna here, to break down a bit the blue, not making the blue too strong, too bluish. So, and I'm using the same blue I mixed and I'm adding the new color just underneath, as you can see, and it is very thin layer. It is a very thin layer of paint, and I'm using the same brush. You know, as you can see, I'm a dirty painter. I'm not cleaning my brushes completely, which means that you have still a leftover of the previous mixed color. So, but this does not matter. It works for me. You can actually clean completely the brushes and then go and mix a new paint. It is very important if you need a total different hue color, but here it's not very crucial because we are going to add a different layer afterwards. So now what I'm doing is I'm adding a bit of this mixture of orangey, ochre, greenish paint, because it always works the same, more or less. We've got a bluish up in the upper side. We got a stronger blue tone. Then we switch to like a azzurro, light blue tone. Then we go to the greenish, yellowish tone, and then we go close to the sun position, and we find a yellow, orange, saturated color. As you can see, just simply blocking the colors. It is not too important now to find the right the right color mixing, but just starting. And here we are mixing all together. As you can see, we just mix the sky to keep it, to make a kind of smooth layer of colors, as you can see, and that's quite fun to do. Just up and down, and looks funny. Use the turpentine and on your paper, as we've talked about the IMPRIMITURA, which is a very tiny thin layer of turpentine mixed with some transparent color, which could be like the burnt sienna with some Indian yellow, and this helps a lot to to know better, to have not the too strong contrast, because if you got a blank canvas, the strong white, you will not be able to see and to put down the values right. It's too hard at the beginning. So I suggest it this way. So now we are mixing some burnt umber with some ultramarine blue and a tiny bit of vermilion with some burnt sienna as well, and we start blocking the mountains in the foreground, in the background, sorry. As you can see, just blocking in with a bigger brush, flat bigger brush. I'm most of my brushes are natural brushes, so natural hairs. They create a better structure because of their like natural quality. If you use a synthetic brush, is super good for the sky, for example, if you need to mix the sky colors together. But I don't suggest you to use it when you're creating some textural painting, because it flattens out all the scene, all the trees. So it's very important to be careful with the synthetic brushes. I prefer my natural ones. So I'm just using more or less the same colors for the backgrounds, hills, as you can see here. I'm not searching for perfect shape, and I'm creating this feeling of depth. A very important thing is to use blue to break down the burnt umber, in order to make a not too strong and not too saturated color, so you can create this feeling of depth. Here I'm adding some bushes which are positioned a little bit closer to our position, to the foreground, so I need to keep the saturation a little bit stronger, as you can see, in order to create the difference in the positioning of our objects, our masses. And we're simply using burnt umber, ultramarine blue, and vermilion, or you can use cadmium red. And if you want to keep your greens more like in nature, you can use green, sap green in this case, and cad red to break down a little bit to make it feel more natural. So here I'm just filling the canvas or the paper. It is a very good thing to do, very important. And what is very important is to fill the paper, the canvas, put all the paint, fill the empty spaces, how to say, and then you can start fixing what's not working and keeping right what is working. So it does not matter if you actually paint and the right color, if you're adding the right color on the canvas. The most important thing is value. Value needs to be right, because if you have got wrong values in your scene, in your landscape, well, then you gotta find a very difficult way to fix all again, and it will not work at the end of the day. So you need to keep, as you can see, the values right. As you can see up in the smaller painting, we've got more or less the same values. We got a big tree on the left, which is a little bit higher than the horizon line created by the big mountain on the right, which is a very good thing to do. So you don't put the same masses on the same line. which makes a more interesting composition. And then we got a smaller tree, a little bit closer to us, which is slightly smaller, right, than the bigger tree, but in the good position, following the rule of the golden ratio. So you create this nice strong composition. And here I'm blocking in the water. I'm using some ultramarine blue, some vermilion, and some light ochre or yellow ochre. You find all the colors on of the palette down below, so you can yourself find out what I'm doing exactly. And just simply by making a light brushwork, I'm filling all the empty space which is not covered by color, by paint. And I'm going slightly, don't paint too fast. Here I made a little mistake, as you can see, but we can fix it now. I'm trying to fix it. And remember one thing, saturation. Saturation is very important. The farther the objects are, the less saturated will be, and they will tend to go bluish. They will lose their like real hue, how to say, and the saturation will not be that strong and will be like bluish like. So if you want to create, as you can see in the mountains, I created this color and this saturation by using a blue base added to a burnt umber color and creating this kind of violet color in order to make this feeling of depth. Here I'm actually working on my values still. As you can see, I'm just remark them in order to keep them visible for me. And just simply, now I'm using a synthetic brush actually to make to create this kind of smooth feeling. This synthetic brush is very nice because the bristles are very strong and compact. They keep together nicely. Now what I'm doing, I'm mixing the colors for the water. So as you can see, titanium white, cadmium yellow, vermilion, and a little bit of earthy tones, earthy like burnt umber. And as you can see, the foreground is more saturated than the background. So yellow ochre, a bit of indium yellow, and cadmium yellow. There we go. Just be very gentle to create this beautiful atmosphere. I love to paint atmospheric paintings, vibrant paintings, and I put first the atmosphere rather than the detail. I like people to feel the magic of the place rather to see there exactly how many branches the tree has got and other details that to me are not so important. Now I'm already blocking, I'm not blocking in, I'm already trying to capture the colors and the reflections of the sun on the water. So I'm working with cadmium yellow and Indian yellow. Indian yellow is a super good color, and because it is transparent and creates beautiful orange tones that are so good on for these sunset paintings. I love it so much, so I suggest you to use it. So now we are blocking in and we're choosing the colors for the water and the water surface. And in the central focal point, just underneath where the sun reflections on the water will be, we will naturally put a brighter color, as you can see. And on the far right, close to the viewer eye, we will choose a darker tone, because that area will be in shadow. So as you can see, we are mixing our colors using cadmium, yellow, Indian yellow, burnt umber, and burnt sienna. These are amazing colors to create the feeling of the sunlight and sun reflection on water. Now I'm using a different brush, a synthetic brush, but this synthetic brush has got a very nice quality. It has strong bristles, so you can use it as a kind of semi-natural brush, which is quite interesting. It creates texture, but at the same time it's very good for smoothing and blending colors. Now we're focusing on the water, and we just simply create a color of water by mixing burnt umber and ultramarine blue, as you can see, simply by filling the canvas, or the paper in this case, and not caring about color itself, but about values. In this case, we keep the shadows of the trees, the reflection of the trees in the water a little bit lighter than the tree, and I simply work on it step by step, as you can see, with the same brush. I actually don't really care. The important is to make this kind of contrast. And a good thing is to create a path in order to draw the attention of the viewer to the focal point. And we don't want to go just straight. We can create some interesting paths, as you can see. Maybe not too clear, yeah, but visible. We don't go just from left to the center, like some degrees and straight line. That's it. Well done. We need to create some visible, invisible paths. Kind of the river, the water is moving and going to the left, to the right, and there is like some vegetable, some bushes that cover the way of the water, and in another position, in another part of the painting, the water is visible, so you can create a kind of interesting path to your sunset, to the focal point. As you can see, I'm using even the backside, or how to say, the end of my brush, in order to remove some of the paint and to create this kind of path, not only by using paint but even removing it. Here I got my flat brush, and I get the burnt umber, as usual, burnt umber with a bit of sap green and a touch of vermilion. So burnt umber, vermilion, sap green and ultramarine blue, and we blocking the shape of the tree. As you can see, we can make it in one way all remember to keep the brush loaded enough in order to cover well all the area. And here make some adjustment. There we go. We fill it up. It doesn't have to be the same. You can then a little bit change it if you don't like it this way. Then we are about to create a little bit of texture so you can understand well what it's about. And here I'm adding a slightly lighter color in order to create this kind of the feeling of depth in the tree, because on the lighter part of the tree is close to the sunset, so the reflection of the light is captured by the leaves, and it has to be seen in order to create this like realistic feeling of light against a mass. Here I decided to add a tiny lighter tone to my background mountains. The same reason here I'm trying to smooth down my masses, my values, and now we're focusing on creating the feeling of light, and it is usually done afterwards. I'm working wet on wet, so in this video we are about to start and finish the painting, and we are trying to capture the light. So I suggest you, if you ever thought about, try to paint on paper, because it could be for you interesting and helpful. There is a reason why the drying time, thanks to paper surface, you actually can paint without waiting days. So you actually get the surface after painting dried in few minutes, like 20-15 minutes. So you can start from the sky, finish the foreground as I'm doing. I'm blocking in my grass, and then keep on working on the sky, so adding like thicker layers of paint straight without waiting 2 days, because you don't actually need it. Here I got my round brush. It's a little bit bigger in order to put down the grass in a like more straight way, direct way. I'm not taking too much time here understanding, as I said, all the details. It's not about details, it's about the feeling in this case for me. And I'm using burnt umber, sap green, and ultramarine blue, a bit of vermilion or cadmium red in order to recreate this natural green. And I'm just, as you can see, simply just blocking, enjoying, no stress, my grass. And I'm using more or less the same color all around. Just remember that the grass you have the closest to you is in shadow, so you need to put down this value a little bit darker than that one of the grass, which is in contact with the light, because there is always this value difference. As you can see, I'm slightly using a lighter color here to create this feeling of depth in the grass. It's more or less the same. You actually go from darker to light anytime, working the same, and it's quite fun. You don't have to actually create the right color straight, but you can later on adjust them simply. And as well here, I'm not actually caring too much about the grass texture. Here I got my round funny brush. This is a smaller brush, as you can see, and I'm mixing cadmium, yellow, some yellow, Indian yellow, and burnt sienna. And we are about to do, and some sap green, here we go. And we are focusing now on the lighter grass, as you can see. Just push the brush, as you can see in the video, just freely create the feeling of the grass. And as you can see, you can go straight on the color, on the darker color, on darker value, and the paper allows it. You will not get a muddy feeling, a muddy color, but you can work straight. As you can see, I'm not using anymore my turpentine, and actually we will not use linseed oil for this painting, but straight paint. At the beginning we used a bit of turpentine, but now it's not needed because we're already adding like the thicker layers, so we can use straight paint. And as always, burnt umber, ultramarine blue, sap green, vermillion, and then use the other colors on the palette you've already mixed in order to low down the saturation for the other colors. It's very good at this point. Cadmium yellow, sap green. Now we're creating the brightest grass, as you can see. Some ochre, yellow ochre, and just having fun around. The good thing in painting is sometimes that when you reach a level of skills, you don't actually know exactly, you don't need to know exactly what you're doing, because anyway you have it already. And I'm not actually pre-mixing colors, as you can see. For me, it's I'm not the type of artist that could do that, because it takes too long for me, and I just simply mix them on my own. It's not so important to find the right colors, exactly the right ones. The important the composition, the colors work together, they fit together, they look good together, and this is the most important thing we need to do as painters, in my opinion. Now I'm doing the same job I started with the background, the mountains in the background. I'm smoothing down my values, because during the sunset is the film, as we said, the sunset film, the light, the golden light film is everywhere, and you need to add it anywhere. So it is very important to keep in mind and create this feeling. So I'm now working on the water, on the reflections. I'm using slightly more saturated and lighter colors, warmer colors, and I'm going over the burnt umber at the very beginning. So simply by doing so, you can create the feeling of depth of the water. Now I'm adding the sun reflection. As you can see, we haven't got the sun yet, but we know more or less where we will position it. So just use the brush, this kind of funny brush for me, and go there and back and just choose. It is not important, the detail, so you can do it different than I do, but the key point is to create this beautiful feeling in our painting. So in this point of the session, we are now focusing on a different thing, and we are now trying to recreate the effect of the sunset on the sky. And it is very important to use now a thicker layer of paint. We're starting off with the titanium white, the vermilion, and the cadmium yellow. Just mix together, and we will actually add it on top of the sky, the first layer of colors that built our sky. We use this mix, and we, as you can see, I added a bit of Indian yellow to make it more orangey, and I'm trying to create the color. I'm mixing the color in order to put it and try to see if we matched it or not. So as you can see, I straight start. I don't fear it, and I was not so happy, so I needed to add a little bit more of paint. Just be aware of using too much white. So white can be dangerous, can break your colors, can kill, literally kill the hue, the saturation, the natural quality of your color. So be careful with white, and if you don't put too much white, you will be fine. So as you can see, I'm adding on top of the first layer my colors, just straight, no fear. We can fix it in the case it will not work. And I'm careful not going into the mountain mass and in the tree mass, because it would mean to break the feeling of depth we have hardly created in the first section. And what I'm doing now, I'm creating a stronger, more saturated color for our focal point, which is the sunset with the sky. And to create a good sunset feeling and a strong sense of light, it is important to create a strong orange red color area, and then add our sun in the middle of it. And the sun can be like yellowish, and in the center you can add yellow and titanium white, but just a tiny brushwork in order to make it visible, but at the same time to keep it natural. Here I'm doing the same thing, adding warmer color slightly in this way. Thanks to the paper quality, we've got a already semi-dry surface, so you don't actually blend the two layers together. You actually blend them, but not that much, so that you destroy the quality of the layers and of your colors. So it's very important to be gentle and just work on it. As you can see, we are like working the same way. So as we said before, the bluest part is in the very upper part, and then we got this kind of green yellowish tone, and the orange red tone close to the horizon line. As you can see, I'm mixing my ultramarine blue now to adding a little bit more of saturation to the upper part of the sky, and just simply by blending it together, once again we will create a more like a stronger depth feeling, and we're creating now like a kind of atmospheric feeling in our scene. I'm using this synthetic brush, which is very helpful for this work. As I've said before, we're not creating now structure, but we're blending the sky and our sky layers together. So this brush is very good for it. In this point, in this brush work, is very important to remove the paint anytime you go back to the paint. As you can see, I'm going back, cleaning, and then remixing, reblending the colors. I'm adding a little bit warmer tone, not to make it too greenish, and just blending again. After blending vertically, we take our clean brush, the synthetic brush, and we just go from the right to the left in order to blend evenly the sky. What we're doing now is we are focusing on the horizon line where we are about to position the sun and the sunset, as you can see. So we are blending this more saturated reddish orange color, and we carefully add it close to the horizon line this way. You don't have to overload your brush because it is not needed. You don't want to cover the previous layers. You want to just add a kind of glazura like. So the glazura in this case is not the right glazura, because glazing is actually applied as a technique on dried paintings. So it is used for layered paintings, not when painting alla prima, so wet on wet. But I said, why not? We need to try anyway, even when things are not said to be so. We need to try. So I tried, and I think it worked well. I'm still working close to the horizon line, and I'm adding these warmer yellow colors, as you can see. I'm not using linseed oil, just straight paint, and when you need to fix your brushwork, you can use the end of the brush, as you saw. Now I did it, and just simply adding the the filter that the sun and sunlight create. So I'm doing more or less the same brushwork I've done in the previous minute, and is actually a very light brushwork, and I'm slightly adding some lighter, warmer color on top of the previous layers. And here I'm focusing, as we've talked about before, I'm focusing on creating the right place for the sunset, for the sun position. And as I said before, we are trying to create this like reddish, strong orange, reddish area in order to fit well the sun. And it's just a work of light brushwork, just to find the right colors. It takes time to understand how to create and bind together the colors in order to create this kind of feeling, natural, realistic feeling for the sunsets. It takes a lot of practice, but I think everybody can do it. Now, as you can see, I've got with me a thin brush, synthetic thin brush. I mix my yellow, cadmium yellow, with my vermilion, and I'm now more accurate. I'm creating like a more sharpy space where I'm adding slowly the from darker to lighter color in order to create this sun feeling. As you can see, I will add it straight, and afterwards, later on, I will just modify, as you will see, in order to make it look more natural and more complex. So we will get as a final result not like a ball, like sun looking like a ball, right? But we are about to create a film looking like the sun shining, which is for me more interesting, and it looks more like a mature work, mature landscape, rather than the classic strong shaped circle. And I'm working now on the reflection, so I'm adding this yellow and yellow orange tone and strong saturation for the sun reflection on the water. And more or less I'm working the same way. A little bit randomly, I'm choosing where to put the light reflection. It's on me, it's on you, and anyone can choose. It depends on the tastes, and everybody has got different tastes, so nobody is here to say where to put it right, where is wrong, and where is good. At this point, it is important to load a little bit more our brush in order to make it pop it up, and in order to make it work for your light, because light reflects way better on thicker paint. So that's why it is very important to use thicker paint layers later on, and use thinner paint layers at the very beginning, for example when we are blocking in our masses, our values. Because if you use a thick painting layer at the very beginning, it will pop up when it will be exposed to light source. So you don't want the structure of your painting to be seen. You just want the something to be seen. In this case, the light reflection on the water is what we want to capture, and what is our friend. It will make the scene magic and giving the scene a great warmy atmosphere, and that is what we are seeking, we're looking for. So now I'm using this small funny round brush, and we are now working on the big tree on the left. We're mixing sap green with some burnt umber and some vermilion and some orange pre-mixed color we use for the sky, and we are now creating the depth we've talked about before. So we are adding slightly warmer, lighter color to the board of the tree in order to create this feeling of light against the masses, against the mass of the tree. Just simply by using this funny brush, we can actually shape our tree as we wish. We just simply by pushing the paint now. I'm trying to clear up and define my edges. As you can see, the tree shape and the bushes underneath the tree, just making some small detail changes and changing the shapes, changing the edges of the scene, as you can see, by using not too much paint, just moving the already applied paint. This helps a lot to make some changes without adding new extra paint on the painting itself. So now we are working on our grass, and we are blocking in the shapes and the lighter tones of the grass. And I'm using the same colors I've used for the sky, just adding a little bit of sap green in order to create the greens of the grass. And I need to be careful not to use a too strong and too saturated color, and I'm trying to avoid now a too warm color in order not to blend it with the water reflection, the sun reflection on water. So I'm just simply working the same way, in a funny way, up and down, a bit randomly. You can choose what to highlight and what not to highlight and keep in shadow. But this depends on the first approach when blocking in the grass. So you have to choose at the very beginning the values, what's in the shadow and what's in direct light. So I'm just mixing my greens, and the closest my grass is to the skylight, the strongest, the more vibrant the color will be. To create a good shadows, I suggest you to mix in your greens a good amount of ultramarine blue and burnt umber. This will help you to differentiate the values. But now I'm not talking about shadows, but we are talking about chroma and saturation. So you get nice and contrast, a great contrast, but not only talking about values, but about color and saturation. And here, as you can see, I'm changing my style of work, and I'm actually shaping and making some corrections. Now I'm working on the reflection in the water, and I'm now very careful, and I'm playing with more delicate brushwork, as you can see. And still I'm trying to reach my target, so to create this atmosphere, this sense of light, because a sunset without light is not a sunset. We need to capture the atmosphere, the vibration of the sunset. So light is super important here. We want to create this cozy feeling, and it's really on you. It depends on your sensibility, how you feel color. So this is a skill you can train, you can easily train by just working on paintings, drawings as well, because it's still very important to know your values and build values. Now I've decided to apply a thin layer of warmer color onto my mountain mass, as to in order to reveal the light and the effect of light on the mass of the mountain, in order to create this effect, this atmospheric effect of that light can create. And now we are not making, now we are focusing on mastering the sunset and the sun, and we are now from the ball, the sun ball we've already blocked in. We are trying to smooth down the area in order to create a nice feeling of transition of the light. As you could notice, I'm using my natural brush with the natural bristle in order to create texture. If I use a classic synthetic brush, I hardly would get the same result. And as we talked about before, it is now important to create the thicker layers. Those thicker layers help us to reflect the light from the painting to the viewer's eye, and those are like highlights, and you have to be careful in order to use them carefully and not overuse the highlights, because too much attention given to a certain part of the painting can then distract the overview of the painting itself. So it's very important to be careful and use this thick layer exactly where you need to put it, where you need to use it, but just keep in mind not to exaggerate in using this technique. And now I'm, by using the same, more or less the same colors of the sky, this orange color, I'm adding a little bit of titanium white to it, and I'm just adding like a kind of thicker impasto, which is just pure paint on top of the previous layers. So I'm creating this kind of atmospheric feeling, and I'm adding this kind of very softy clouds in order to create a more interesting sky scene. So the same technique we recently used, so the thicker impasto technique, we apply gently to all the most lightful areas, and we keep on working the same way until we finish the painting. So now I decided not to comment the painting anymore and to leave this few minute video tutorial without my comment, so you can enjoy the last part of the video, and you can maybe guess on your own what I'm doing in order to make a kind of exercise for you without telling you all about. So thank you for watching my video tutorial. I'm looking forward to preparing a new one for you, and if you like the video, just give me a thumb up and subscribe. If you want to, just comment your thoughts about this video tutorial, and see you next time.